My name is Kate. I'm going to invite Blair to introduce Kathy officially. I thought I might give a very brief little announcement because we have some great news. Those of you that have been following the SB 242 bill, it was signed into law by the governor a few days ago. So thank you all for all of the support and the testimonies and the enthusiasm and the financial contributions. It's laying the groundwork for some really important legislation next session. So we'll keep you tuned on that. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Happy Friday. Happy third Friday. So I have the complete honor of introducing Kathy. If you have been to an integration circle with us on the second Wednesday of every month, Kathy is our integration guide for those circles where we talk all about making meaning of the symbols and imagery that comes through, whether it's in a psychedelic medicine journey, a dream state, even a waking state. At this point, we're in peculiar times, so synchronicities and signs may be just coming out of the woodwork at this point. Your water has not been dosed. Yeah, no kidding. So Kathy, prior to her time with working with dreams and working with SPS, invested a lot of time into significant training in high-tech environments for a little over 25 years, coaching leadership and teamwork and really developing skills, not only to enhance their experience inside of their working day, but also to take with them outside of that. And sometimes in a corporate setting, we can come up against some restrictions that maybe prevent us from wanting to engage in the way that we do. And Kathy had felt just a deeper sense of wanting to connect on more levels than just, relating to the job, relating to the teamwork. And so decided to seek a master's in transpersonal psychology and specializing in dreamwork, and she nailed it. And so ever since then, Kathy's been facilitating dreamwork circles, working with clients, making meaning out of all of that. And so tonight, we'll be getting a sneak peek behind the scenes view into what Kathy does, and we'll be able to work with some of the dreams that we have and connect with each other, with Kathy, and the beyond. So thank you, Kathy, so much. Welcome, Kathy.
Cool. Thank you, Blair. So tonight, my talk is called Becoming Whole Through Our Dreams, a Nightly Journey into the Unconscious. And if you were here last month and heard me speak, I talked a little bit shorter amount about dreams and how to remember your dreams, and a little bit more about the unconscious psyche and the patterns we go through in life, and working with those patterns and using dreams as a way to work through that. So tonight, I have a little bit of overlap, but not too much overlap. I'm going to put you to work a little bit more. So it's your turn to go to work, and I'm going to have you work with one of your dreams for part of it. And so start thinking now, if you don't have a dream in mind, think of a dream or a psychedelic journey that you want to work on tonight. You're not going to have to share all of it. You only share what's comfortable to you in smaller groups. We're going to just do a small group at the end. So in addition to that, I'm going to talk about some of the why we dream, some of the research behind dreaming, and some of the brain science with dreaming, and then how to do group dream work. So what you seek is seeking you. This is a quote from Rumi, a 13th century poet, philosopher, mystic, and I consider myself a seeker. And I figure if you're here and you're part of Sierra Psychedelic Society, and you're here for a dream talk or a dream workshop, there's a high probability that you might consider yourself a seeker too. So I'm going to tell you what I think it means for me to be a seeker, but I thought I'd start by asking you all, if anybody wants to just raise your hand, what you think of when you think of a seeker. What one word or a short phrase, and what you think it is to be a seeker.
To be curious.
To be curious.
Someone who pursues truth and meaning.
Someone who pursues truth and meaning, yes.
I feel very similarly, and also we were kind of chatting about this before the circle started, the seeking the beyond my current level of perception. Also, how can I experience this and then go a little bit further in my understanding of what's taking place?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Blair.
For me, it would be my father. I was exposed at a very young age to someone who was a seeker his whole life, and quite adept. So, I hear the song by The Who, and it's my dad. So, and obviously being in that environment, being raised in that environment, having people come by the house and sit and drink tea with my dad and talk philosophy and music and psychology and all of that stuff. It's a powerful. It brings forth a lot of meaning for me, a lot of thought.
Yeah, thank you. Lucky you to have start young. And
Yeah.
your
Oh
family.
yeah. Yeah, it was a great environment to decide what I wanted to believe in.
I hope that for all kids in the world. Anybody else? Sean?
Humility.
Humility. Oh, good one. Charming.
I think we discussed this already, but to understand the unknown.
To understand the unknown. Oh, my favorite, of course. June. So, yeah, I agree. Yes, 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 with all of those. And for me, to be a seeker, I'm on a path of self-discovery. That's much of what you've said. And it's also when someone hears a call and they heed that call in creative ways. I stole that from someone else, but I love it because we've all received a call at some point in our life, and you figure, how am I going to go about this? And psychedelics is certainly a creative way, and dreaming is certainly two of the most creative ways, but there's many ways. As many people as there are is a different way to seek. So, of course, there's all possibilities when it comes to seeking. So we're going to start right off with your dream, and I'm going to have you, to make sure everybody has a pen and pad in front of you, and I'm going to take you through your dream first, and then we'll write it down, but go ahead and close your eyes, or just gaze downward if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, and bring that dream to mind. And look around the dream, look at the setting. Where are you? Are you inside, outside? Is it a building or a house that you recognize, or maybe it's a place you don't recognize? What time of year or what time of day is it? Can you tell from the sun or the light? Are there colors present? Oftentimes we say we don't dream in color, but once we start getting into the dream, we will notice colors. Are you actively moving through the dream, or are you sitting back watching? Maybe there's a form of transportation in the dream. Are there characters in this dream? Are you interacting with those characters? Or just observing? Maybe there's animals. Now I want you to go where the emotional charge is in this dream for you. It might be where you're feeling a lot of emotion, or a part of the dream that you're very curious about. What are you feeling? What is it bringing up? Maybe you can name the emotions, maybe you can't. Can you feel a felt sense, or a felt sense in your body? And where is that in your body? And what does it feel like? You might have a texture or a temperature. And just look around the dream and notice any other details that you haven't thought of yet that might be popping up now. And the last thing I want you to do is pull out an object or an image in this dream that stands out to you. Don't overthink it. You can usually find an object or an image. It's not a character. It's not a person. It's inanimate. when you're ready, open your eyes. And I want you to write down the dream in your journal. If you already wrote down, you brought a dream, you already wrote it down, maybe write any other details that came up for you. But date it if you remember the date. And give it a title. Give it a nice descriptive dream title. And write the dream in present tense, because always puts you back in the dream. It gives you the feeling sense of the dream to write it in present tense. And write up any emotions that came up. And lastly, write what that object was. I'll give you a couple minutes to do this. And remember, it can be a psychedelic journey, it can be a dream, it can be a waking dream.
Could you go back?
Oh, go back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one more minute to finish up. Does anybody need more time? I'll give you another minute. Make sure you do get the object or the image written at the end. That'll be important. you were at the last June's presentation, I presented this dream, and I'm not going to say it in great detail again, but I'm going to use it for purposes of examples throughout the night, because that always helps to drive the points home. So just quickly, this was a dream I had, a dream that changed my life, and I call it the Guru Chooses Me, and I made a collage of it. And the day that I had this dream, I had been on YouTube watching, doing some research and watching someone do a big presentation at a conference, because I was looking for the information. And for some reason, that came into my dream. So that night, I dreamt that I was in a big auditorium and there was a guru on the stage, and I was hiding behind the curtain. I didn't want to be seen or heard, and the guru called me out at the end of the presentation and said, why are you hiding? I'm going to take you to the back of the room and show you all the stuff that I do. And there was a 10-year-old girl in the dream that was a version of myself. And as I worked with this dream, I realized that I was in a job that I hated at the time, and it was affecting my health. I was very stressed. I was not happy. And I realized that this dream was telling me that it's time for me to stop to work through the belief that I shouldn't be seen or heard. And the 10-year-old girl had a big piece of that, because something happened when I was about 10 years old that I was embarrassed, or someone shut me down. And it's something I worked on throughout my life. I was a very shy girl about that age. And it's one of those things you work on, and it always comes back to you. You know, you work and you go up the mountain. And so there was still more work to do as I was stuck in this job about using my gifts. And the dream just felt very loving and kind, and someone just gently telling me, yes, you have gifts, don't be afraid to go use them. And I eventually left that job. But go ahead, and I'm gonna say, why do we dream? I mean, why did I have this dream? A lot of people say it's just random neurons firing in the brain, and there's really nothing more to it than that. Maybe just the day's residue. I mean, after all, I just had that experience in the day where I was watching the talk on YouTube, and so that just pulled up in my dream. Maybe that was just leftover random neurons happening. Or the other camp says the dreams are for our adaptation and evolution and for survival, and dreams have helped us to get to the point where we are now. So I'm going to present a little bit, you can guess which camp I'm in, to talk about the research and the brain science around dreaming. So with the advent of, in the last few decades with MRIs and PET scans and EEGs, we can look at dreams a lot more, and we can see what's going on in the brain and test people while they're dreaming, while they're not dreaming, and see what's happening in the brain. So there's been a lot of research around dreaming, and some of the theories are memory, sleep, and dreams are for memory and learning. So we take the salient information from the day and we consolidate it into our existing memories and beliefs, and then we file away what we don't need, and that helps learning and memory. So we dream to remember and we dream to forget. And then there's camp that says we dream to increase our social skills and to get along with people in this world, and a lot of dreams are practicing that. Or we dream to process emotions, the emotions from the day, or maybe it's big trauma throughout our life. And then of course there's a lot of work on dreams as problem solving. And we'll provide some examples of that. So to start off really quickly, and I covered this last time too, there's 4 to 6 dream cycles a night that go through REM and non-REM. And REM is that deep sleep where you have the crazy dreams, and that's where we have the rapid eye movement. And that's where we dream. You do dream in non-REM a little bit, but the majority of your dreaming and the deep dreams are in REM. So you'll start out in non-REM with light sleep and lighter, and then you'll go to deep sleep, and then you'll jump into REM. And then after your first REM cycle, you'll cycle back, and you'll do this 4 to 6 times a night. And so in your first 45 to 90 minutes of sleep, you'll have a 5-minute REM cycle. And then in 3 to 4 hours, you'll have a 10-minute REM cycle. 5 to 6, you'll have a 15-minute REM cycle. And then the last early morning hours, the last part of your sleep, you'll have a 30 to 60-minute REM cycle. So that's why we often wake up in the morning, the early morning, and you can just remember a dream, because it may have just happened. Or if you wake up in the middle of the night and you remember a dream, it's very likely you're just waking up from a REM cycle. So yeah. So dreaming is overnight therapy. There's a lot of research to show that Dream helps us to resolve relationships, and the stuff that happens during the day, we're working through that. So there's a report by Josie Malinowski. She's looked at the number of dream characters in dreams, and then she looked at the relationships, and the people that had more dream characters in their dreams reported better relationships in their lives. And then we dream to work with stress and depression. So there's studies that show that people whose dreams resembled their waking life stress reported a decrease in depression. So they measured people on a scale of thought suppression, is called the thought suppression scale, but it's people who have intrusive thoughts more so than people that don't. And looked at it along a continuum. And the people that didn't have as many intrusive thoughts didn't have as much of the dreams, the stressful dreams, theorizing that what we're trying to do is work out the stress in our dreams. And so for me, in The Guru Chooses Me, the characters present in the dream were the guru. And that was a big interaction for me as an aspect of myself, that 10-year-old girl as an aspect of myself. But even bigger than that was the audience, the big audience, and they were the ones I had a fear of. I didn't want to be seen in front of. So what is my relationship to that audience? So those kind of things are really important in dreams. You might have thought the audience is no big deal, but those kind of things are helping us to work through our relationships. And then emotional regulation. So REM and dream sleep calibrate our emotions. So they've done some research where they took two groups of people, they showed emotional content, and people that went 12 hours without sleep, and people went 12 hours, we had a sleep cycle in there. And they looked at MRI scans of the people upon waking, and they measured the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. And the people that had sleep had a downregulation of their amygdala. That's your fight or flight or freeze part of the brain, and the emotional part of the brain. And that was, after sleep, that was downregulated, but the prefrontal cortex was firing more, theorizing that what they were trying to do is integrate what they learned in the dream. And those that didn't have sleep had the amygdala firing on the MRI. So those are the people that were dealing more with the fight or flight even upon waking, even after not sleeping. So Matt Walker, he wrote a book, Why We Sleep. He's done a lot of TED Talks, and I highly recommend his work if you're curious about sleep. And then he talks about dreams as well. But he said it isn't time that heals all wounds. He says it's time plus sleep that heals all wounds. So problem solving, Dmitri Mendeleev, who was an 18th century scientist, went to sleep with the periodic table. He knew the elements of the periodic table had to work together in some kind of hierarchical or categorical way, because we didn't have them connected in any way, but he knew they connected somehow. He stayed up for 3 nights, as the story goes, and he couldn't figure it out. He had them all on cards, and he was trying to put them into piles. He woke up in the morning after a night's sleep, and he realized he was dreaming about putting them in rows and columns. So he tried to do that, and it's putting them in series and categories. And even though all the elements weren't even invented at the time he did this, they all eventually worked, and that's the beginning of the periodic table. And then Elias Howe, who invented the sewing machine, he was trying to figure out how to get the thread to lockstep through the fabric automatically, and he was putting the hole in the middle of the needle, and he went to sleep one night, and he had a dream of tribal warriors throwing spears at him, and he noticed in the spears, and there was an eye-shaped hole in the tip of them. So he woke up the next morning and said, why don't I do that in the sewing machine? And that was the beginning of the automatic sewing machine. And then Paul McCartney, he woke up with the melody to Yesterday one morning, and he asked all of his friends for weeks, where did this melody come from? I know I stole it from somebody. I had to have stole it. And no one had ever heard of it. And he wrote the words to it, and there's the Yesterday, the Beatles version of Yesterday. And then there's a lot of stories about songs that came to people in dreams. And Larry Page, who's a co-founder of Google, he went to sleep one night and dreamt that he could put all the websites in the whole world into just a few computers and then just save the links. Because he was trying to figure out how to do it efficiently to save space. And he woke up the next morning and realized that that was the beginning of the Google search engine. So lucid dreaming. People are always curious about this one. and want to talk about it. Lucid dreaming is when you're aware that you're dreaming while you're in the dream. Do we have any regular lucid dreamers here? It's about 50% of the population that lucid dreams on a regular basis, a little over 50%. And then some people also have can take control of the dream. You don't have to do that part to be a lucid dreamer, but some lucid dreamers take it to that extent and can have control over the dream. And that's about 23% that can do that. So lucid dreaming is a hybrid state of the creative energy of your brain's working through the creative ideas in a dream, but you also have the logical daytime mind coming in. So I'm guessing that the prefrontal cortex is waking up a little bit and you're becoming aware, and you're kind of wondering why, this must be a dream because things aren't working out. Oftentimes people notice they're in a lucid dream because the clock on the wall doesn't have numbers, or they'll notice a baby's driving a car, and that kind of stuff makes them realize that they're lucid dreaming. And if you want to be a lucid dreamer, those are the kind of things you can start to look out for and ask, is there anything in this, start thinking, when I go to bed tonight, I'm going to look at my dream, is there anything that's going to be weird? Or you can always incubate a dream, we call that incubation, and write down on your dream journal by your bed, I'm going to have a dream tonight about lucid dreaming, with lucid dreaming. It's just intention setting. So if you want more information about lucid dreaming, Stephen LaBerge is a great reference. He's the one in the 70s that first proved that he was lucid dreaming while he was sleeping by communicating to researchers by moving his eyes back and forth. But I follow Robert Wagner, and I never liked lucid dreaming because I'm one of these people that I think my unconscious is trying to talk to me through the dream, and I want my unconscious psyche to tell me what to dream about. That's my passion. As you know, Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. And I think Charmy said, what did you say was that you're seeking?
Seeking the unknown so we can understand and trust better.
Seeking the unknown so we can understand. And for me, the unconscious psyche is those parts of us that the emotions, thoughts, and memories that we've hidden away, that they're not in our awareness. And Jung says to become whole is to bring that into awareness. And we do it slowly but surely, and it's not anything that you ever reach the goal. It's a lifetime's journey, but he called it individuation. I call it seeking, but that is that's what he said is the ultimate goal, is to become whole, and you can do that through your dreams. So I always think, why control your lucid dream? Let it come in. But Robert Wagner, I did a workshop with him, and he said, no, you don't have to be controlling your dreams. If you become lucid in a dream, you can start asking the dream, why is this dream here? What do you have to teach me? Or you can talk to the dream characters and say, what do you have to tell me? Is there something I need to know? Or show me? Do we need to walk through the door? Show me what I need to know, or what do I need to learn tonight? So you can use lucid dreaming for those kind of things. So I want to talk a little bit about group dream work, because we do integrate some of that into our Wednesday integration circles right here in this room at the Sierra Psychedelic Society when we do our integration circles. And it's a wonderful way to share your dreams in a group and get different ideas from other people. And it's what I do when I facilitate dream circles. And we use the Ullman method, and it's a method by a psychiatrist by the name of Montague Ullman. And he realized that people who were trying to work on their dreams have the same habitual patterns over and over, and they would get stuck. And dreams are so hard to solve anyway. They're so curious and bizarre and weird. They're hard to figure out. And for us to work on our own dreams, we would get stuck in our own patterns. It's almost like trying to solve the problem with the energy that created it. So he said, share them in a group and have other people offer their ideas about the dream. But rather than tell them what their dream meant or interpret the dream for them, own your projection by saying, as my dream, this is what it might mean for me. Because all of our life is a projection. We're projecting onto people all the time. We see things through our lens, through our values, through our memories, through our history, and it's just called being human. And so it takes the edge off, so you're not preaching to other people. You're saying, you really are acting as if it were your dream. And so you're doing your own work too. And you don't have to completely be in that person's situation. We had an example in the dream group where a man was sharing something about being typecast in a role, and a woman could say, hey, you know, I'm not a man, and I don't understand what men go through in that way, but I am a woman, and I've been typecast in roles too, and here's what it means for me, or here's what the dream might mean for me. So I'm sharing this about the group Dreamwork because we do it here on Wednesday nights and it helps you, but also because you could do this with friends. If you want to work on your dreams, you could start your own dream circle. You could join a dream circle, and it's a great way to discover more about your dream. So share a little bit the next one, Tara. So in this process, Ullman says we evolve through the personal and the collective. So it's kind of it's the tension of opposites here. You have your personal dream and what it might mean something to you. The symbol doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. We all have our history with, I always use the example of cats. Someone might love cats, they live with cats and it's their best friend, and another person might be deathly allergic to cats. So it's your unconscious psyche bringing the symbols into it. So you decide ultimately what the dream means to you. So in this method, we always preface the feedback with as my dream or as my experience, or if it were my psychedelic journey, and then we reflect. And that's just owning your projection. And always be curious about what might be going on in your own situation. You don't have to get it right. There's no right or wrong answer. You're doing your experience, so there's never a wrong answer. And if the person doesn't resonate, that's fine. That's the nature of the work. And then you can always seek clarification. So oftentimes when someone shares a dream or a psychedelic journey, we'll start out by asking a few clarification questions first and say, is there anything like this resembling in your waking life right now? Or what does John mean to you in your life? Because you brought up someone named John in the dream. Can you tell us who John is? Or when you think of cats, what do cats mean to you? And then you can, with that information, you can say, okay, it's my dream. And then you start to weave the dream from the person's experience. Do your own work. And then use symbols, metaphors, homonyms, and puns. It can be really fun. Also archetypes. So for example, I had a dream. I was going to the shoe repair store, and my soul needed to be repaired. So as my dream, you might be doing some deep soul work right now. As my dream, I'm doing some deep soul work right now. And let the dreamer have the last word. So the dreamer always reflects and says, hey, yeah, I resonate with that, or they can have the last word. Be careful not to advise, coach. Sometimes it comes across as coaching when you don't use the reflection and own it. Don't tell the dreamer what to do. Don't feel like you have to get it right. And don't worry if you slip up. I just slipped up right here. And I slip up in dream circles all the time. And people say, hey, Kathy, you forgot to own your projection. So it's just nature that we do that. Okay, next. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a real life example of this right now. And I'm going to invite my integration facilitators to help own a projection on someone's dream title. We don't have time to do a whole dream. And it might sound crazy. You think, what can you get from a dream title? We don't have enough information, but it's amazing what comes out. We call it a lightning round dream work when we just have a few minutes to work on a dream. So I just want to quickly introduce who we have. We have Brendan, who facilitates circles, Kate, and Blair, and Taylor. And yeah, did I miss somebody? So does anybody want to volunteer their dream title? Oh gosh. Charmy. Thank you for offering your dream. Okay.
The unforgotten.
The unforgotten. And not all of you facilitators have to reply, but just think about it for a minute. Raise your hand if you're ready. I'll start. Okay. As my dream, there might be something in my life that could easily be forgotten. But it's something that's what's coming up for me is, it's so special, it's not forgotten, it won't be forgotten, but it's something that could be easily slipped away if I don't pay attention, or if I don't stay awake and conscious and aware. It's something because it's unforgotten, it's something very precious to me. And as my dream, I might look at that and see where I can hold it so that it isn't forgotten. Brendan?
It's my dream. I think if I were to title something as unforgotten, it implies that the double negative a little bit. Like, to forget is to negate in a way, and then unforgotten is to negate the negation. So to me, I would think that that's more of a calling in, like, of something that you've lost, whether that's, and I think it would depend on the nature of the dream for me. If the nature of the dream had an emotion attached, like whether it was scary or whether it was fearful or whether it was loving, and whether that was something like unforgotten for me almost feels like it could be something that I loved very much. I'm like, oh yeah, that is something that I want to call into my life, or something that is coming back into my life. For me, I lead the addiction, so if like addiction was kind of like gnawing at me again, that might be something that was coming for me. So it would be, depending on the nature of the dream, it would be something that I would either go towards or look more closely at.
Thank you. Kate?
That's really interesting, because that's where I went to in my mind with the double negative, and it felt to me like the other way to think about that would be the remembered. And so as my dream, I find when these morsels kind of come up from the unconscious, so much of it can be, and like Brendan was saying, certainly depending on the context of the dream and the emotions and the associations and whatnot, but many times dreams are reminding me of something that has been relegated to the unconscious, and then it becomes accessible to me when it presents in the dream, so that my conscious mind can engage with that. So I think that's really beautiful, the unforgotten.
Blair?
What comes through for me, if that were a title I was giving to a dream experience, is similar to what's been shared in the sense of energy shifts and transforms and does not cease to exist. And the unforgotten, for me, what resonated was the eternal recognition of an energy frequency. How perhaps that at one point was in human form, and being able to connect to that energy, and then years later being on a hike and passing a tree where that same energy frequency is pinged, and how the unforgotten everything is always just shape-shifting. That is what would come through for me if that was my dream, and just the remarkable majesty of that. It reminds me to step beyond the current level of perception and to kind of dance in the beyond.
Okay, well, so you kind of get an idea. Now, Charmy, did anything resonate for you, or anything you want to share as a result of that? You don't have to share the dream, but just as anything.
Definitely something, now that I've listened to them, it's something that I've definitely buried, but it's this one dream I can never forget since I was probably 4 years old. And there is an energetic attachment to it, because I still remember how, and now that you brought it up and you put me in that experience, to actually sit there and actually feel the emotion within me and what that means for me. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. So you can kind of see how as we were reflecting on her, we were also doing our work because it was, and I love how you brought up the addiction because we're doing our work. She may not resonate with that. One of the most beautiful experiences I had in one of my first dream groups was someone was reflecting on someone's dream about food, and in their life, food was very problematic in their family, and she had an eating disorder as a result, and she was in tears reflecting on somebody else's dream because it was coming up for her, and I think that's so beautiful. So let's share it without doing the projection. Does anyone want to project without owning the projection to Charlie? Blair?
Well, it seems that your dream is just telling you to pay more attention to what maybe you've forgotten, and to maybe just sit with that more. It seems to be what's coming through. But yeah, that's why I'm giving the vibe reading. Sooner rather than later. Just kidding, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm still projecting, but to me it took me almost to like childhood, where like maybe we're missing a piece of ourselves, you know, that we want to rekindle.
Yeah. Did you hear that? She's trying to clear the air with you now. Could you tell the difference between Blair's not owning her projection and owning her projection? Yeah. So what Montague Ullman says is people can be triggered when they're being told or it's being interpreted for them. So we all own our projections. It just takes it softens the edges to the group work. We're always projecting. Yep. Even therapists, they do a really good job at being objective, but they still are seeing things through their subjective eyes. Or dream an analyst, you know. I'd say never give your power away to a dream book because it's your unconscious psyche and a dream definition book. And sure, if you're stuck, look in them, but take the definitions that resonate with you. Don't just take one because someone's told you that's what the dream means. Thank you all. That was beautiful, and I appreciate sharing and being vulnerable to do that. Okay, next one. So this is Ullman and Zimmerman's quote: "The dreamer in us keeps urging us onto greater wholeness. Dreams never give up on us. They are with us every night, urging us to face the issues that restrict and discourage us or that limit our inventiveness." And the thing I love about this is they're urging us back to greater wholeness, and that's Jung's individuation, you know, taking off the layers of our patterns that we've created over the years, and becoming lighter, and understanding who we are, understanding ourselves a little bit more, and becoming back to our authentic selves. And then what limits our inventiveness, that's what dreams do, they're so creative. You know, in our daytime, waking time pattern, we think very convergently, and dreams open us up to the divergent, it opens up to many different ideas, which can make it hard to understand because they're crazy ideas, but it also helps us think things in a different way that allows our brains to open up neural pathways that we didn't think about in waking life. So I'm going to talk about the dreaming brain, a little bit of neuroscience. And I always love starting with the default mode network because they're talking a lot about the default mode network now being very similar to the dreaming brain. And the default mode network is that network when you're not doing, that fires in the brain, different parts of the brain that fire when you're not on a task. So it's called the task negative network sometimes. And it's when have you ever driven to work and you got to work and you didn't know how you got there? Well, there's a good chance it was your default mode network that was ruminating with you for that 20 minutes or whatever, and you didn't even know that was going on. So Marcus Reichley discovered this. He's a neurologist, discovered it in about 2001, but it's helped so much for us to understand psychedelics and to understand dreaming. It just helps us to understand what depression, helps us to understand what's happening in our brain. So when your default mode network goes off, it's almost unconscious, but you're worrying about the future or thinking about the future, you're contemplating the past, you're interpreting the acts of others, and it's your sense of self. So it's your autobiographical narrative. So how did I fit into this world, and should I have said that, or what should I be doing with those people? So it's it's helped us survive. It's a survival mechanism, but as you know, it goes on overdrive and it's hypervigilant and it ruminates. And it's sometimes called the busy brain or the monkey mind because it's that part of the brain that we just want to turn off sometimes. But they're finding more and more that the dreaming brain does have the default parts of the default mode network are on, and it's very similar to the mind. We call it mind wandering, that task negative when the default mode network's going on. And there's some new research by William Domhoff out of UC Santa Cruz saying that the dreaming brain is an extended version of the mind wandering brain, which is your daytime default mode network going off when you're not doing anything, paying attention to a task. Which is why sometimes in meditation we have a mantra, or we do our breaths, we count them, because that's task positive, and that's a task focused, and then your default mode network can't creep in there because you're focusing on something. Okay. So the dreaming brain, I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between the dreaming brain and the similarities in the psychedelic brain. So down-regulated is noradrenaline and the frontal lobes. So when you go to sleep, the noradrenaline in the brain goes down. And the adrenaline is that chemical in the brain, that's just like adrenaline in the body during the day, that gets us to focus on thinking and to act quickly when we need to act. So if the saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, you've got the adrenaline, you've got to act quickly, and you don't have a lot of solutions. Or if your boss calls you out at work in a meeting and says, hey, give us a report on what's going on, your noradrenaline's going up, you have to come quickly. So it's kind of a convergent thinking pattern. You have to have the right answer. And a lot of our daytime thinking is with that noradrenaline. It's very convergent. We kind of think a little myopically. And then in psychedelics, it's the same thing. The noradrenaline in the brain goes down, so you have that divergent, different kind of thinking. And then the frontal lobes, so your prefrontal cortex is downregulated. That's the logic and order side of the brain, which is why when in your dreams and your psychedelic journeys often there's just really crazy things, because there doesn't have to be any logic or order in a dream. Anything can happen, and again, that helps divergent thinking. And so the only time that noradrenaline does not go down in a dream is during PTSD nightmares, and that's why people with PTSD will wake up in the middle of the night and often with disruptive sleep because their noradrenaline's firing and they don't. That's different from the regular dreaming brain. Okay, next one. So the limbic system and the visual cortex are upregulated. So that's the limbic system is the emotions. It's your amygdala, which is your fight, flight, or freeze. Your amygdala takes sensory information and assigns emotion to it and decides how to act. But now think of this, you've got the emotions happening, but you don't have the adrenaline. So usually the amygdala is with the adrenaline and you've got to act quickly. So your emotions are coming into play, but it's soft. You know, there's the edges of it are softer. You can look at these situations that in daytime, it might be pretty traumatic or hard to look at. Matt Walker says, dreaming is a soothing balm for your daytime problems, because it just looks, when I had the dream of the guru, he said, you're hiding. And I didn't feel scared, I felt loved, and he showed me all the gifts. And I knew I was hiding, and it's like, yeah, this is my life. But it was such a wonderful dream. I was just kind of moving through it, accepting what he had to say. And so that's how I think of just not having the adrenaline in the brain or the logical thinking that has to be the critic. The logical thinking is also the critic. And then the visual cortex is your mental imagery. During dreams, when I walked you through, you had a mental image that was the dream portrayed this story before you. It's very mental. It's very visual. And so along with your personal memory and the mental imagery, a lot of times in your dreams and psychedelic states, you'll see scenes played out from your childhood. They might be a little weird, but you'll take history and they'll play out in front of you. So I'm going to stop there and just look at these things that are going on in the brain. You know, you can just see our brains are so different at night. It's so different that it's like us being on psychedelics. And why do we, as humans, why does this happen to us at night? It's almost as if the evolutionary process is trying to say, you need to think differently. Your patterns, you know, your daily patterns are not going to help you survive. And perhaps there were people that didn't dream and they didn't evolve. But you need to shake things up and you need to think of things differently. So, yeah, just all of these together, it's no wonder we have such crazy dreams, and it promotes that divergent thinking, possibility, versus waking time, convergent thinking. And then the last one is the default mode network. And I have the lines going up and down because in psychedelics, the default mode network, we talk about it. Kate does an excellent job talking about the neuroscience of psychedelics, and I've learned so much from her. And in the psychedelics, your default mode network is downregulated, disintegrated, and you might have an ego dissolution in the psychedelic trip. So you don't have a sense of the self, and you let that go. It can be hugely scary for some people, and for other people, it just gives you a sense of wonder and a whole new way of looking at the world to have that ego dissolve. In dreams, not so much. William Dumhoff says, the default mode network does go down somewhat, so your lines of your ego are blurred. So you will show up in your dream. You're usually moving about your dream. Some people do have ego dissolution in their nighttime dreams, but mostly not. You're in the dream, and you're moving about the dream. You're trying to solve a problem. You're working on something that's frustrating. Trying to accomplish something oftentimes, or you're doing something very empowering and beautiful in your dream too. But that's because there's two parts of the brain. The medial prefrontal cortex and the cingulate cortex are firing on the default mode network, and those are the self-referential parts of the default mode network. So that's how do I relate to me in the world, and that's why your dreams don't have a complete ego dissolution. It's also why it helps you to kind of figure out who you are in the world, and we get those relationships and some of the depression and stress. The default mode network is also related to depression. People who have the default mode network going off in the day oftentimes have more depression. So, psychedelics in the brain, let's see. So, William Domhoff says that dreaming brain is very much like the mind-wandering brain. So now that we can see the scans, we can look at people while they're dreaming and while they're the daytime task negative, they're very similar. I think I already covered that. So this is the next up model. And I love this because without knowing the default mode network, we would never be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And a lot of, Zadra and Stickgold call this the next step, but there's a lot of other researchers that say the same thing. I've seen it, the similar theories, but they just came up with a name for it. Zadra and Stickgold are huge researchers in the dream field. They have over 200 articles. One's from Montreal, one's from Harvard, and they have a book called When Brains Dream. And so the next step model, network exploration to understand possibilities, says we take our day residue, so our unfinished thoughts and feelings from the day. Does it sound familiar, the default mode network? Sometimes those ones that are ruminating, we don't quite close them because they're not totally in our conscious. And we don't have time for it. I mean, for me, during the day on my dream, that day I was watching a YouTube video about a researcher presenting about the work. And I obviously don't remember it, but I'm guessing something inside me was interpreting that, and I'm in this job I hate, thinking, wow, that person's really doing their passion, and they're an expert in the field, and they're sharing their gifts with a big audience, and I'm good chance that there's something like that that was ruminating within my brain, with my default mode network, and was thinking about me and the past and what's going to happen in the future and how I relate to the world. So anyway, I went to bed that night. And then what they say, you bring in previously unexplored information from your past. So you bring in different ideas that maybe aren't obvious to a solution to that dream. And for me, the 10-year-old girl came, so that's one thing from my past. And then, the solution, the obvious ideas were like a guru on a stage and me hiding, this isn't something that wouldn't happen at all. But so it says your brain's taking those two things and then taking the non-obvious associations and pulling them together so you can kind of put them together and make meaning from it. So what they say is when the daytime problems are not solved, the default mode network saves that content for your REM dream sleep for you to work out in your dreams. So when you have more of the divergent thinking narrative, rather than being in that awake state that can't solve the problems. So he says, Matt Walker says, without our dreams, we would be running around like a bunch of stress. We'd constantly be in a state of stress. Okay. So we use this example here a lot because it's Michael Pollan's example from his book, How to Change Your Mind, or Change Your Mind. And he talks about when you've got a trenched slope in the ski hill and you keep taking it, you're going to keep taking the same one. It's going to get deeper and deeper. It's much like the neural pathways in your brain. The more you think that in those patterns, the more your brain's just going to go through those patterns, and they're just going to do them. Fixed pattern thinking, convergent thinking. But when you shake up the snow globe, you can think of things differently. New patterns can arise and new possibilities. And that's what happens with dreaming and psychedelics. So, always a great example. We talked about dreaming and the brain. So the most common dream themes, these are some of the most common dream themes. You'll recognize them: being naked in public, flying, falling, being chased, sex, not being prepared for something, death, water. So these are oftentimes, you can see there are brains trying to work through the problems of the day. The default mode network set them up in the day, and then we go to bed at night and we have these wild ways of looking at it. So the dreaming brain is always seeking. It's always seeking something. Just like us being seekers, the dreaming brain is seeking answers. Okay, so next. So we are going to go back to your dream. And what I want you to do is we're going to close our eyes. I'm going to have another handout. We're going to hand out something. I'm going to put these in front of you. But you don't need to do it yet. We're going to start and have you put your hands. So go ahead and close your eyes and go back into your dream. Put yourself back in that dream. And now I want you to think of that object or the image that you came up with earlier. What does it look like? Just notice it. Notice every detail about it. Now I want you to become that object. Close your eyes and imagine yourself becoming that object. What does it feel like to be that object? Okay, when you're ready, I want you to open your eyes and go ahead and take the object and say, I am, let's say it's a telephone. I am a phone. As a phone, my purpose is. As a phone, what I like best is. So you're still, if you even need to close your eyes again and just think and put yourself back into being that object. What's its purpose? What does it like? And so on.
We all are affected by it.
We're finished. Come on back to the room when you're done.
They say ceremony
Oops. No.
Go back.
Yeah. So I love this exercise because it gives you a chance to kind of put yourself, it's a Gestalt exercise, it gives you a chance to kind of see maybe if there's an aspect of you, if maybe the like and dislikes are two parts of you that are tugging against each other. Maybe the fear is something that's preventing you from moving forward in your life or not allowing you to achieve what you want to achieve. And maybe the emotions are somewhere in your life where you're addressing those emotions. But I'd like to hear from anybody that wants to share maybe an aha they got from that or something that resonated with them from that exercise. Yeah.
It was profound. It was, someone came up with this exercise. It's it's standardized. A lot of people have done this.
It is, yeah.
Because this was amazing for me. It was really profound.
Oh, good.
And so was the dream. And as I was doing the exercise, I was realizing things from the dream, which was a few years ago, that I never realized. And I'm happy to share any of those things, but just reading my purpose and what I like best in relationship to it no longer being the object from the dream and becoming me is just mind-blowing. Right? So, and I know that about the unconscious mind and how mind kind of works,
Yeah.
but it was very, very moving, very powerful.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. We don't have time to share the details because we're running out of time, but that's how these DreamWorks work. They kind of force you to look at it a different way and get that unconscious psyche snow globe shooken up. And does anybody else want to share a profound experience?
In our group, we noticed that we're all exploring the same things, just in different expressions. And it was very clear that we're doing similar work in our dreams.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Into that?
Yeah.
Because, like, dreams usually take the place of some kind of narrative, and what makes dreams memorable usually is they reach some kind of culmination. And even though, like, I didn't have their exact dreams, the emotions that they produced in me were like as real as if I had them. And so that's why I really like it when you said you should say like as my dream, because you obviously don't want to like confuse your interpretation with their interpretation. But hearing other people's dreams, you dream it with them. That's right.
I love that. Well, that's what Ullman says. There's the personal, there's the collective. And there's some collective energy going on here. And in a dream circle, you'll often have the same themes showing up. It just works out that way. So I want to just kind of, so what do you do now? How do you continue to work with the dream? There's so many different exercises, and I introduced a few of them to you last time. And oftentimes in the dream circle, what we'll do is each week we'll do a different exercise. And then when we reflect on the dreams, those exercises often come up. It's really powerful. So now, just continue to be curious what came up, especially if this is new for you, or if there's something that came up out of the unconscious that you haven't, it's kind of surprised you. Just go gentle with yourself, be curious. If it's something you've been working on for a while and it's bringing you to another level of it, maybe it's time to take action with it. Continue to be a seeker. You know, maybe you can seek out some people that do different work, or you can seek out books to read on the topic. And use the support of others. You know, work with a friend on a dream, or work with the integration circle here at Sierra Psychedelic Society, or a therapist, or a coach, or, you know, maybe it's just bringing it up with a friend in a casual conversation, and you can support one another. And then dream it forward, so your dreams can continue to help you. So see if that theme comes up again, or incubate a dream and ask a question about it. What came up in this exercise? You can say, show me what else I need to know about this. Always write down your dream incubation question though, because you'll forget it by the next morning. And then you've got to kind of see how the two work together, the dream and then your incubation question. And then shadow work. We didn't talk a lot about shadow work tonight, but shadow is those parts of us unowned and disowned. It's the part of the ego. Ego ideal does not want to own in us. And it's kind of the parts that we kind of push away a lot. And so when they start to come out through dream work or through psychedelic work, it's hard to work with it. And there's a lot of people that do shadow work. I like Robert Johnson has a book on shadow work, but if you go onto Amazon, you can find tons of stuff on shadow work workbooks. And so that's just another method to continue to work on your dream. And so, dreamers and seekers, I'll leave you with this. Another quote from Rumi. I have been a seeker and still am, but I stopped asking the books and the stars. I started listening to the teachings of my soul. So thank you. So just want to say one thing that's on the back of your slip here is In July, I'll do a dream circle, and we are going to, they're donation based, and where the money will be donated to Sierra Psychedelic Society. So if you want to be a part of a dream circle, you can, there's information there. You can look at my website or email me. Okay, and the resources are also on there too. So a lot of the resources I referred to tonight, the books are there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you all.